We're in Niddah, Perek Zayin Mishnah Bet. Second Mishnah in the 7th chapter. Masachet Niddah. We're talking about a sheretz. Remember we said a sheretz is mitameh, but it's mitameh lach and not yavesh. If it dried out sheretz, dried out, I don't know, dead small animal, then it's not mitameh. So the question is, how long was it there? Because because we have to go, how far back do I have to wonder? If I find a sheretz in my house, how far back do I have to now say, oh, all this stuff, all the tumah that I had, all the bread that I baked is all tameh? Says the Mishnah. Mavoi is a courtyard, not a courtyard. It's like an entranceway into the courtyard. It's like a private driveway in a sense. So a sheretz shenitzam b'mavoi. So the sheretz found in this mavoi. The mavoi is an entrance. They would have sort of like apartment blocks. Think of townhouses, right? So every area of townhouses would have its own courtyard. But you have a mavoi. You have this a driveway leading up to every private courtyard. And so the mavoi was also a part of private. It was not Reshut Rabim. So if you find a sheretz in the mavoi, mitameh lemafreya, then you have to, it's mitameh, everything that was in the mavoi lemafreya, retroactively. Ad shiomar, until you can go back and say, badakti ta mavoi, as I checked this mavoi, v'lo hayabo sheretz. Oh, ad sha'at kibud. When's the last time it was cleaned? Or when's the last time the mavoi was examined? Sha'at kibud swept. So you have to go all the way back. It's let's say it's mavoi, but we'll say if you find a sheretz in the communal area in your apartment building, when's the last time the apartment building was swept or cleaned? So back until then, you have to assume all the food that was in the apartment building was tameh. It came in contact with the sheretz. V'chein, the same thing is true. Ketem shenizah b'chaluk. If you find a stain in a chaluk, remember we said a woman's dam, blood, is mitameh. If you found it on her clothing, mitameh lemafreya. Then she baked bread. So when's the last time? When did the stain happen? And so retroactively, it's mitameh. Ad sheyomar badakti et chaluk. Until a person or she says whatever. Ketem is a stain, could be any kind of stain. Let's say a person has seminal emission or whatever. Until a person says badakti et chaluk, I checked this chaluk. V'lo hayabo ketem. I know that when I put it on today, this morning, yesterday, 5 days ago. Oh, I shot the kibus, or I never checked it, but it was washed. They didn't wash their clothes every day. They didn't change their clothes. Everything was kind of dirty. So when it was last washed, and before then all the stuff that you dealt with, all the food that you processed, or the tahor that you processed up until that point, would be tahor, but after that point, it'd be tameh. U'metameh bein lach u'bein yavesh. And the ketem is matameh, whether it's lach or yavesh, dry or wet. Why? Because even if it's dry now, you didn't know when it happened. It was wet at some point. Rabbi Shimon says that yavesh mitameh lemafreya. If it's dry, then it's mitameh lemafreya. But what if it's lach? So you say if it's wet now, that means that it just had a stain. So how long? Maybe 12 hours. How long would it be until the blood dries or whatever? So no, the Tanna Kama says bein lach bein yavesh. Why? Because even though it's wet now, you could say no. Even though it's wet now, you could say. Maybe it got mixed in. Lach mitamei lemafreya ad sha'at kibus. It's always mitamei. The emar yavesh. Yes, it was dry. Umaya udinafa but it got wet. Meaning the cloak got wet. So you can't say, oh, I see a wet stain on my cloak, a wet blood stain. The woman says, oh, I just must have stained it now. No, maybe you stained it 2 days ago, and now you just got it wet. Okay, so therefore, bein lach bein yavesh. Rabbi Shimon says that yavesh mitamei lemafreya. If it's dry, so the Bartanura, based on the Gemara, says that Rabbi Shimon is talking about only the case of the Rabbi Shimon is talking about only the case of the sheretz, not the case of the ketem. Because the ketem he agrees, but if you find a dry sheretz, yavesh mitamei lemafreya, it's mitamei lemafreya. But v'alach eno mitamei ela ad shashi yachol lachzor v'liot lach. But for the stain, he says I agree with you. But if I find an animal, if it's not dried out, so how long could the animal have been here? Right now, you can tell basically it died a day ago. Otherwise, it's creeks, it dries out. So if the animal is lach, then you only go back as far back as you could theoretically assume that the animal died up to that point. But before then, you can say that the stuff is not mitameh. All right, we'll stop here. Dedicate our learning to memory of my father, of Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Make it a great day.